Greetings, fellow quitters, and welcome back to the CMDQ podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Mari Casey.
And I'm John Pelfrey.
So after a little bit of time away from the studio, we're back and we're kicking off a brand new season of CMDQ by reflecting on just some of what we've learned from last year's conversations. We've been honored to host all sorts of guests up to this point, from finance experts to coffee experts, and it's given us a lot to think about, both personally and professionally. As self-employed folks, the professional will always be personal, so it's hard to draw a distinction, but today we're going to try.
Yeah, and we also wanted to let everyone know about our plans for next season with CMDQ. As much as we like having these great conversations with really interesting people about fun topics and things, we've heard from you and we've heard some feedback, and we're going to make a couple of adjustments. We're going to be focusing in on the topics and issues that matter most to solopreneurs, individual entrepreneurs, small businesses. We're going to talk about industry trends, business management, the daily logistics of freelancing, and a changing economy. But before we do all that, let's get personal. In part one of our year in review, we're going to take a look back at some of the most valuable life lessons that we've gathered so far. So get ready to walk down memory lane a little bit. Don't forget to tune back in for part two. It's going to come out in a couple of weeks, and we'll be sharing a few of our favorite pieces of business advice that we've gotten over the last year. So, Mari, warm up. Do you have any personal goals for the new year?
Yes, I think, one of the things, this kind of relates to what we're going to have a conversation about, but I think it's like going into the end of the year, you're always super busy. I know I'm always super busy and things are just like a blur of life is happening. And so coming into this year, I was like, this year I really want to spend time like slowing down, being more intentional about what I'm giving my time to and what I'm saying no to, what I'm saying yes to. And then also just like being more present and aware. So being like available for like what's happening. And, one of the questions that comes up a lot of times in different conversations is like, what would your billboard be? And I've always said my billboard would be pay attention, and just in general as like a rule of thumb for people, because pay attention to like what jobs you're taking, what relationships you're getting involved in, what you're eating, what you're drinking, how much you're exercising. Like in general, the phrase pay attention, I think is like a key one to focus on as like a life mantra. So this year, going into this year, it's really just, for me, it's a lot about like, how am I going to slow down and pay attention and make every single day like I'm in it. I'm not just like blurring past it.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I'm going to keep growing my hair out longer and keep growing.
Pay attention to your hair.
And I'm just going to turn into an old man over the course of next year because I hit 50 at the end of this year. So I'm just going to let it all go. I think in all seriousness though, it has been sort of a recurring theme throughout my life that the 9 year is always harder for me than the 0 year. So like 19 was scarier than 20 for me. 29 was really not fun compared to 30. 39, compared to 40. Those were the years where the transition felt more real for some reason. And so for some reason at 49, I'm looking at it and going like, how do I want to live the next 10 years of my life? What do my 50s look like? And then out of that, you start to think, well, gosh, that means in 10 years from now, I'll be, 59 and I'll be looking at what do my 60s look like? And then I'm like, oh my God, now I'm really getting old. And you start playing that whole game of like, whoa, now, what does retirement look like? Where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And it all starts to feel very real. And so this year is going to be a lot of planning and really thinking and with some very intentional thought about where do I want to be? What do I want to do? What's important to me now that I'm an empty nester and we have some freedom? My wife and I have some freedom and stuff. So it's going to be a little bit of introspection, a little bit of planning. Maybe we'll make some major life decisions. Maybe we'll decide to move back closer to my parents. Maybe we'll travel a lot.
Condo in Florida. Let's maybe you're 10 years from that. It's still a while.
Florida, no offense to Floridians at all, but it's too hot. I don't know, the drivers and the whole, I want to live a slower pace of life. So that's going to be my thing. It's like really looking and going like, what do I want the next 10 years?
Yeah. Once again. Well, that plays right into we kind of categorize each of these little wrap-ups by 3 key themes that we came across. And so we have 3 for this one. And our first one that we have talked about again and again is the idea of paying attention. So it's one of the biggest themes we've revisited over and over again. Sometimes it's not even in our idea, but we talk to a podcast and a guest and it comes back to this idea, the importance of being present we're very conditioned to fill gaps in time with scrolling, checking messages, doing random things. And as a result, we tend to miss out on a lot. We tend to have those days that are blurs and sometimes months that are blurs, sometimes years that are blurs. And so I think it's good to know that idea that we all need to focus and learn to pay attention better. But so what does this mean for us in terms of our just enjoyment of life as well as our safety and awareness of our surroundings?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is a little bit of what you talked about, slow down a little. That's the first thing, slow down. And if you go out on a walk, enjoy the walk. Don't just power through it and be like, I got 20 minutes. I'm going to go, walk as fast as I can and come back home. Like, take some time, smell the roses. I think that's part of it too. And the other part of it, we're going to hear this clip from Terry in a minute, but he talks about your subconscious never lies. And I think that's such an important way to look at things. If your gut is telling you something, whether that is there's danger around the corner or your gut is saying like, I don't want to eat pizza tonight. Like either way, listen to your gut a little bit. Don't overthink stuff. I am a perpetual overthinker. And I think that's a big part of this too. He's going to talk about it from a safety perspective, but I just think of it as a general way of life thing. Like sometimes just do something on the spur of the moment and then pay attention and be in it and don't be like, oh, is this the right decision? Should I do this? Is this, just listen to that gut.
Well, I think for Terry, it's like, to go back to your walking example, you can really work on training yourself to read those signals. So go on a walk, don't put in a podcast, which is like, whoa, I'm walking in silence. And then just notice things, like practice noticing, practice hearing birds or like that car is driving by or that person's 2 streets over. I saw that guy last week. I think that's one thing that, with the clips that we're going to share too, that just being aware of how you're reacting to people and places and things and sounds, because it's like we numb ourselves so easily by all of the distractions that we have every single day that it's kind of like our subconscious can be a little stunted because it's like, oh, well, we didn't pay attention to that weird dog last time because we were on our phone. But like, I think the more and more we can be aware of those subtleties that our body and our signals are giving off, good and bad, right? It's like, bad, you're avoiding a situation that could be dangerous. Good, you noticed, a neighbor that you haven't seen in a while, or the bluebirds are coming back to nest, or whatever. All of that plays into the idea of being aware and paying attention. And I think Terry does a good job in all the episodes we've recorded with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and play those couple of clips right now.
Your subconscious is never off. It's always scanning. It's always looking for potential problems. It's always looking at from the perspective of keeping you in one piece. It's the conscious captain of the ship, the higher level thinking that overrides those instinctive responses. So one thing I recommend is look back on past experiences and ask yourself, when was the last time I had an instinctive response to something or someone, and was I correct? And start to reflect back on when you were correct or even when you were wrong, but analyze why. Why was I right? Why was I potentially wrong? And look at those who start to build trust in your own instinctive responses. We're cognitively hijacked every time we pull out our device, and you aren't seeing squat. And people say, well, nothing bad has happened up till now. Well, you've just been lucky.
Okay, so reaction. How are you going to practice better situational awareness?
I'm going to call Terry and say, I want you sometime in the next 6 months to try and steal my wallet while I'm walking into the grocery store.
That'd be a little tricky because you can sort of sense Terry coming. At least I don't know. He might have the skills to surprise you.
He's having a stealth mode, I bet.
Yeah.
And I like the idea. I'm trying to especially as we get into spring in a little bit, like just being outside more, and again, just paying attention to different things, being aware of it. I mean, what's one thing with my kids as they get older, when we're going into stores, like helping and talking to, like, did you notice this person? That person's sitting in their car. Can you see that car is backing up? Like, I try to also teach them about what to pay attention for. And so by doing that, I'm also reminding myself, oh yeah, I need to pay attention to that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's just take the earbuds out of my ears a little more often when I'm outside walking around. It's just so easy to say, oh, this is my podcast time, or this is when I'm going to catch up on listening to a book, or I want to listen to this new record that this guy made or whatever. It's so easy to use that time as the time for that media. But really, this is something that my son's taught me. Like, you can just sit at home and listen to a record and do nothing but listen to the record. And that's it. And I remember being a teenager and just sitting, like putting something on the radio and just sitting and listening to it and being very intentional about just listening. And then when I was out in the world, because I didn't have earbuds or anything because it was the 80s and Sony Walkmans were new and expensive. I had to be situationally aware of the world at that point. And so it was like the two things were divided and separated, the distracted listening time, whatever. It allowed me to focus on that and really enjoy it. And then when I went out into the real world, I had no choice but to pay attention because there was nothing else really to do, right? So you can occupy yourself. So I think maybe try that out. Try out dividing the time up and remembering what it was like before I could just take my entire world with me on my cell phone everywhere I went. If I'm driving, maybe I just drive. Maybe I don't listen to the weekly show with Jon Stewart this week. I don't know.
I was subconsciously multitasking. Reduce your inputs. Yeah, I think that
maybe just drive a little bit, and I don't know. So I used to love that. I used to just get in the car and drive. Now gas is more expensive, but anyway, just being more intentional about like doing the thing.
Yeah,
whatever that is.
I like it.
Yeah. All right. So next up, theme 2, take ownership. Another very important thing that has come up over and over is the importance of taking ownership of our success and growing through discomfort, growing through challenges, difficulties. So we talked about this in a very practical way with wilderness survival expert Craig Caudill. So here's a clip we're going to play from Craig.
No one is coming to save you. You need to prepare yourselves. And some people don't know that. And some people, even though they have heard that, don't want to hear that. They want to depend upon somebody else to fix their problems because they themselves have never been uncomfortable. They've never lifted weights. They've never stayed out overnight in a scary place. They've never had that hard conversation with anybody. They've just lived a moderately simple, easy existence, and they've never dealt with anybody hard, which breaks my heart for people because, I mean, a lot of our growth comes from doing hard things. It's important that we do hard things on a regular basis.
All right. So we're back. What's your reaction to Craig? Like, no one's coming to save you.
When we first had him on there, I found myself going like, hell yeah, that's so true. Like, I love talking to Greg. It was such a good time. And, this is one thing that I've been talking to my kids a lot about. Like, we have to do hard things. Like, you have to get good at doing hard things. And when you're young and small, it's like your hard things are very small, right? Like, I skinned my knee, I dropped my ice cream cone, like whatever. My boyfriend broke up with me. And they feel so monumental because you haven't flexed that like hard thing muscle yet, and it has to grow. So when he was talking about this idea that there's so many people in the world who haven't done things like lift weights or exercise or go through a hard thing or even like stepped outside their house because they're afraid of hard things, I can't fathom that because it's just, that's to me is what builds character and what helps you get through the next hard thing. And so I think, him highlighting that I think was really super important because the better we can get at discomfort, the better we can get at doing bigger things and also helping people who are younger or who haven't gone through hard things navigate that whole situation. So I thought it was such a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to go through hard things. I think it's so easy. This goes back to the earbuds in the ear all the time or whatever. It's so easy to avoid the hard thing. It's so easy to ignore it, to distract yourself with something else, to just say like, I'll do that later because I can get a dopamine hit from something else. It is more difficult than ever to just face a challenge head on, whatever that is. And, if it was like a bear in your face right now, you'd have to face the challenge. You'd have no choice. The bear is like there and you need to do what you need to do in order to survive that. Get yourself big. Don't turn around from it. Don't run. But you've got to be very aware of the bear in the situation. And I feel like a lot of people, a lot of times now, they see that bear, whatever that is in their life, and they just kind of pretend like it doesn't even exist. And then pretty soon they're in trouble,
And I think the world is like really good at finding ways to avoid those, right? It's like, okay, I can see that this could be potentially, we were talking about this related to college kids. It's like we grew up going, like we wanted to go get a movie. So we go to Blockbuster, which means you gotta drive to Blockbuster, interact with the guy at the door who's awkwardly coming out, interact with the guy who's stocking the shelves, interact with the guy who's checking out. And it's like, there's so many interactions that could be awkward and a little difficult. It's like the process of things being slightly harder made us appreciate like, okay, we got the video. But I think now our world is so built for convenience and ease and for separation from any difficulty. Okay, I don't have to go down to the store to get some toothpaste because I can just hit this button on Amazon and it magically arrives like I'm, a king.
Yeah.
And so if we don't purposely seek out hard things, then it's like we can easily live in a world of just complete ease. And that's not good for us long term. So I think it's important to put those things in front of us that make it a little difficult because we have to build up that resiliency and build up that desire to push through things.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that old phrase? Like, when the world gets tough, the tough get going, or something like that?
When the
Right?
going gets tough, the
The
tough
going
gets.
gets tough, the tough get going. That's it. Yes. And that's kind of what it is like you got to sort of make things a little difficult for yourself on occasion, just so that you get a little stronger. It's the simplest kind of thing. And this leads us to our next clip. In order to build muscle, you have to work at it. You have to lift weights or move your body or do something in order to get stronger. The next clip we're going to show is from Brian Meyer. He is a personal trainer, fitness coach, all around great guy. And so we're going to run that clip right now.
And that's half the battle, right? Like, yeah, you can pick these great exercises, this and that, but if you don't show up, like, it doesn't matter. So I think that's an accomplishment of just saying, I got in 4 this week. It was 40 minutes. It was 30 minutes. And you should be excited and happy with that, because so many people don't get into that. So I think we're almost too hard on ourselves sometimes, being, I gotta press more. I gotta do more in the weight room, this and that. Just freaking show up, and be consistent with that, and if you can do that, I think that is something that is easy to grasp, rather than looking at certain numbers or whatnot.
All right. So we're back. That was a great clip from Brian. And the theme is just freaking show up, like every day or, every other day, whatever it is. If you're going to work out, if you want to get stronger, if you want to get better at something, if you want to improve your skill set at anything, you just do it. Do it for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever you have. Like, just show up.
This is like, and I mean, obviously you and I like to extrapolate small things like that could be about exercise into like the world, but like in any relationship, in any job, starting a business, it's like, be consistent, show up and get it done. And one of my biggest pet peeves is, especially when I'm working, not in general, just in general, when people say, well, I'm going to try to do that. I'm like, no, just do it. Like, I'm not saying you need to do it perfectly. I'm not saying you need to be the best at it. I'm saying just do it. Well, I'll try to run tomorrow. No, just run tomorrow. Like, it doesn't need to be that complicated. Or I'll try and send an email to that client, or I'll try to do some more new business. No, just do it. I think it's, with Brian, and you and I know both of Brian too, because we work with him, but it's like, he has that mentality of like, just go. And I love that idea when it relates to taking ownership. It's like, I think a lot of times as business owners too, or people who are starting businesses, we can throw excuses in there all day as to why we're not being successful or why we're not moving forward. And the truth is, a lot of times that's what they are. They're just excuses. And if we can just show up and just do it consistently, even if it's like 1% better every single day, then you'll see progress. But it's like, if you commit to making excuses over commit to like doing one small thing at a time, then you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to like be able to focus on what you can control in the beginning.
Absolutely. And I think to that end, it's also very important to measure that progress so that you can see some physical evidence of it too. So if you show up every day and you measure a baseline, and so if we take this back to exercise, right? If you measure a baseline of how fast you can run a mile or how much weight you can lift in a certain exercise or whatever it is, if you start with that baseline and then you come back 6 months later and you just measure it again, even if you're just showing up and doing the bare minimum and keeping it simple and everything, you will show improvement. It is like a guarantee that you will show improvement, but you have to measure it in order sometimes to see it, because sometimes our minds lie to us and our perspective, gets a little shifted and out of whack. And we think, well, we're not making progress. We're not getting better at this thing. Nothing's moving. The business isn't growing. I'm not getting any new sales, whatever that thing is. But in reality, it might have moved. You might have gotten more sales. You might not be giving yourself credit for the work that you've done and be able to measure that. That's one of the things that's helped me out so much with working with the trainer, is the measurement of it. So that, like, last Friday, I had a horrible workout because my leg hurt and I couldn't move. And I felt like it was just a giant waste of my time and energy and money. And it was very frustrating. I get one of those like every few months because, the body hurts or whatever. But Andrew was basically like, look at how much farther you've come than you were a year ago and all the things you could do now that you can't do. Even on a bad day today, that is better than your best day was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Like, that's true.
Yeah. That's really true. I think it's like, a lot of times we also think that our timelines are not correct. It's like, okay, I'm going to get this done in a month. I'm going to be like LeBron in a month. I'm going to be lifting, or I'm going to be, 10K my returns and making all these new business deals in a month. And it's like, realistically, I think that's part of also when we talk about building goals and stuff, you have to think about the timeline and you have to be able to adjust it and give yourself a break and be like, all right, a month was a little too nuts. Like, let's look at 3 months. Like, that's not a realistic goal. And I think that's part of what Brian did a good job talking about is sometimes you need to adjust your expectations the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about your time. Cause I'm the queen of like overstacking my schedule and being like, I'm going to work out 7 days a week and I'm going to be, and then like life happens, right? Dentist appointments, kids get homesick, whatever. And I can get really hard on myself about not hitting all those days or hitting all those goals. And realistically, like there's so many things beyond our control as far as scheduling and time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so try to be flexible about controlling what you can control in that situation and not giving yourself a super hard time about, I think is key.
Absolutely. So we've got one more here. Mar, do you want to introduce this one?
Yes, this is a lovely one. So theme 3, and that we've really liked talking about this year is just how to pursue happiness. So over and over, so many of our experts reminded us that we are worth the effort it takes to do hard things. We had so many guests who grew through difficult circumstances and took big risks to build the life that they wanted. Thinking back on our conversation with Josh Perry, who turned what would have been a career-ending health condition for most people into an opportunity to help coach people on being their best selves, was a really great conversation. Like, I love talking to Josh, and obviously we've worked with Josh continually, but just the fact that he ran into this really hard thing multiple times and had to go from his whole life, what he knew in BMX, and that was his whole world, and completely flip it on its head and find a positive outcome was like super inspiring and super awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's run that clip now.
And the way I look at performance, it's a sport of trying that can go any way you want. The game is life, the sport's trying. That's performance. That's how I look at it. And back to a question you asked me early on about how do I stay motivated after all this stuff? It's constantly trying to improve. It's constantly trying to do my best. And if you're not taking care of your personal health and performance, that chance just dwindles. So that's my take on personal performance. It's a sport of trying and it's personal.
Awesome. That was such a great clip. What did you think after talking with Josh when we got to talk with him last year?
Yeah, I mean, what was funny, if I remember that episode correctly, he threw that little nugget in at the very end of the episode. We talked for a really long time. And then at the very end, he throws this like Yoda level nugget of wisdom. He's like, yeah, the game is life, the sport is trying. And I was like, whoa,
trademark.
Mind blowing. Yeah, exactly. He should put that on t-shirts. And I think that goes back to just, the same thing as like, just show up, right? It is this perspective of, you don't know what's going to happen unless you try. You can't make assumptions about this thing's going to fail or this thing's going to be an incredible success. Like, you have to do the steps. You have to try. You put in the work. I just love that mantra, that perspective. Maybe I'll get it tattooed on me. I don't know. It's a really good line.
It was great. And I think we continued to work with Josh. I worked with Josh for about 6 months as a coach, and I highly recommend working with him as a performance coach. He's excellent. But he really lives that idea of just a better every day, like a little better every day at what he does. I think, it relates a lot to how Brian approaches things too, where it's like, just be consistent, and I think what Josh does really well is you can tell he is passionate about performance in a way that is balanced. It's not like just go be the best and crush the universe. It's about just improve, be a little better every day, keep trying new things and keep pushing yourself and keep learning. And you and I have talked about the value that we really value, the idea of you should always be learning. And I think with Josh, what he's really highlighted to me is like the value in learning something makes you better, makes your brain better, makes your physicality better, makes you happier overall, because there's always something new to discover. And I think that was a really key takeaway from our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being an extreme sports athlete too, that mentality and perspective. I've heard a lot of skateboarders say this, but they just say like 1% better every day.
Yeah.
And that idea of like the compounding interest of your efforts and looking at it as just a little better, a little bit better, a little bit more. And it's never a big giant leap that happens. It's like just 1% every day. And at the end of a year, you haven't grown by 365%. You've grown by like 10x that.
Yeah.
Because of the way that the compounding works and your skills increase and all that. And those are the types of things that you really learn every time you fall off your bike and it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was a really great conversation. We really appreciated it. And then that brings to mind one of my very good friends, probably one of my closest friends in the whole world, He is a yogi and a mindfulness instructor. This is Jarrett Levine, and he had a lot to say about happiness and how it isn't a passive pursuit. So let's roll that clip right now.
Hope is in action. It's not a wish. If you're looking for change, and if you're looking for change, whether it's in an office space or otherwise, and the hope that gets garnered and created is from action. I mean, that's the thing that I really feel a lot right now. And so we can have wishes, and wishes are really important, but the action of it is seemingly the most important.
All right. So we're back now, and we got a chance to listen to that clip from Jarrett. Jarrett is a very thoughtful person, and I love that perspective. This just hits on the same theme. Hope is an action. It is not a passive thing. Hope is something that you do. It is not something that happens to you. What did you think about that clip, Mari?
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed it when we had a conversation with Jarrett. And it's funny because I remember like going into like, he's going to be this peaceful yogi. Because in my mind, like for yogis, like the world is, everything's happening and they're coming and it's all very like, not passive in a way, but it's not as active as he came across. And so I left that episode very surprised at how he was, talking about it. And I actually really appreciate it because while there is a level of contentment, I think in that idea and in his practice and in meditation, there's also still, he's like, but you're responsible for finding that in your life, for finding happiness and hope. And so I thought it was really a unique way to look at it. And so I kind of walked away with the episode being like, yeah, I do have control and I do have an active part in creating the life that I want to live. And I thought that was a really great perspective.
Yeah. One of the things that it's interesting that you say that about Jarrett, because I've known him for 10 years now. And it's funny because Jarrett's actually a very intense person and a very intense sort of personality. When you see him on the tennis court or you see him in an activity, like when he focuses all the way in. Like there's no
focus is hard.
Yeah. There's no sort of like halfway with him when it comes to that level of focus and that level of intentionality that he has in his practice and in his movements. And when you really stop to think about somebody who is, works hard on his mindfulness and works hard on his being present as much as possible, it starts to make sense. You have this perception that people like that are very passive and chill and calm, but in reality, they are usually very intense and focused, and they have the ability to control that and get right into that focus very, very quickly. Getting to know Jarrett, like he is really chill. He's very quiet. He's very whatever. But then when you get him going on his thing, whatever that is, it just
he's locked in.
Locks in really quickly. And we have a lot of conversations about flow and about getting into flow, whether that's in a work perspective or with athletics or whatever. And when you really break flow down, it requires a certain level of intensity and a certain level of sort of urgency and stress in order for you to lock in that way. And so that's part of this too, is like, it goes back to, this is a really good clip to sort of summarize everything we talked about today. Things are hard, do hard things. And then if you do hard things and you show up and you try and you focus and you lock in and you just do that for a little bit every day, progress is inevitable. I think that really, sort of what we were trying to say here. Progress is inevitable. If you do this stuff and you show up and you focus and you really give it, some effort, you don't have to do that effort 20 hours a day. You and I agree that that's a big giant lie. This whole like workaholic sort of perspective on life is pretty crazy, but work hard for a little bit, short bursts, you make tons of progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So lightning round here. Do you have a favorite memory from the past season of Command Q?
Oh man, there's so many good ones. I really enjoyed our conversation with both Craig and Terry. Terry, because he's so knowledgeable about what he talks about, especially the body language stuff, which I still find fascinating. But he's also hilarious and great, has some amazing stories to share. And I think with Craig, it's interesting too, because like he's bringing a different type of perspective on resiliency and how to be, reliant on what you need in your world to like stay safe. And so I enjoyed, and we actually had them pretty close. I don't know if you had them back to back, I can't remember, but pretty close. And so I thought, the takeaway from that conversation was just like, wow, like we really need to take ownership. We really need to be aware of what we need and be prepared, either like from, disasters and things like that, but then just also like what we need in our life. Do we need to rest? Do we need to work out more? Do we need to exercise? Do we need to eat better? So I think that those kind of all happening around the same time really pushed me forward in the idea of like, I need to really pay attention to like holistically, what do I need in my world? What do I need to pay attention to? So I thought that was really fun. What about you?
Yeah, it's really hard for me to choose a individual
know.
clip or thought or perspective. I mean, I really think the one that sticks out to me the most is probably Josh's quote that I think is just so genius. So the game is life and the sport is trying. I just think as a way to sum up the first season of Command Q, I think that's a really good, succinct way to do it. And it was one of those just like mind-blowing moments. Sometimes somebody gives you a sentence and it changes your perspective. And that can be a movie clip or a quote, or it can be something famous from a person in history or whatever. But that little phrase really kind of sums up everything we've talked about today, everything we've talked about for the last year. The game is life, the sport is trying, and that's just what you got to do. So that's probably my favorite quote, my favorite memory, my favorite little clip. Definitely the most eye-opening. I love little lines like that. I can't help it. The songwriter in me. It's like poetry. So what's one piece of advice that you got from a guest that changed how you did things?
I mean, I think you kind of, so that quote of it is probably the answer for you. I think overall, one of the things the takeaway that I take away from this year is just have more conversations with people. And Craig talks a little bit about this with his, like, how we need to be more neighborly and we need to know our neighbors and have community. And that was a theme that came up a couple other times too throughout the year, was how we need to talk to people. But for me, like, that just holistically over the course of talking to people was like, I loved talking to everybody last year. It was such a blast to hear everyone's stories. And I think everyone has a story to share. But that really kind of awakened me to be like, wow, I want to have more conversations with people who I interact with every day. So in the last 6 months or so, I've started doing some more stuff with my neighbors, going on walks with my neighbors. We're going to start doing this porch party when it gets warm again, where people can just come over on Thursdays and just hang out. There's no programming. Just bring a drink, bring your kids, whatever. Just for an effort of like meeting more people, because I did feel like the takeaway and the joy that I got from Command Q last year was like, we got to have conversations with a bunch of really cool, interesting people. And I thought that was really eye-opening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think community was another theme, and we'll probably talk about this more in the next episode, but community was another big theme, and getting out there, meeting people, talking. And yeah, I've made a similar effort over the last year to get out of my house more, and also to get out of my like basic social circle of the people that I see all the time. Like, I love my friends and they're wonderful people, but to go just interact kind of in the world with strangers and have conversations again. And you start to see very quickly. I mean, I was at a Mexican restaurant the other night and we were sitting at the bar eating dinner, and ended up having this incredible conversation with this guy next to us just about it started off about football because we were watching football. And then it ended up about his wife and their relationship and their 25 years of marriage. And you could tell the guy just needed somebody to talk to and to listen. And, we left that conversation. At the end of it, he just said, "Thank you so much for listening to me."
That's awesome.
And it was just like some little interaction that in a daily life, but normally in the past, maybe we wouldn't have talked or had that. But you just start a conversation about football and it turns into something else. And I hope he felt better at the end of it. I really do.
Yeah.
It was a great interaction for us. It felt very cathartic in a lot of ways. And so that community aspect, I think, has been something that you and I have both sort of taken to heart. And it does make you feel better at the end of the day. Go talk to a stranger. Like, don't be afraid of strangers. Unless your subconscious kicks in and says,
unless they're
be a danger.
Their eye blinks are off or something. Can't see their hands. Then
right. But if you're eating dinner at a Mexican restaurant at the bar watching football, you're probably okay, unless something's going. Yeah. So anyway, what is one thing that you hope to do more of in the upcoming season? What should we look forward to?
So we talked about our format change a little bit. I think one of the things that we wanted to do, and I think that we can do more of, is also bring some takeaway skills for people. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about business, about self-employment, just about work in general, and kind of what place it fills in our lives. And so I think one of the goals is that people enjoy the conversations that we have, but then also walk away with some kind of an action item or a step that they can do to improve whatever it is they're working on. So I think that's something that I'd like to see us do in the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think focusing back down on a little bit of our core knowledge base and demographic, people that we work with every day, freelancers and small business owners, solo entrepreneurs, it's going to take the conversation in a slightly different perspective, focusing down on the takeaways for how our experience over the last 10 years with Uncompany, how that can help benefit other people. I think it's going to be a really fun and exciting thing to sort of share some of that knowledge and some of those little things that we've learned, whether that's how to interact with clients or how to pitch yourself better or how to present yourself, on video or whatever the topics are that we get into. Really making that practical for people is going to be really fun, I think. And hopefully it'll help a few people out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun to sit back and sort of reminisce on some really, really incredible conversations that we had with some just amazing people.
Yeah.
And I think that's my overall big takeaway from this, listening to these clips again and realizing like, man, we met some really cool people through this podcast. Like at the end of the day, it's all about sort of connections and yeah, that's just been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's all for today. Be sure to tune in for part 2 of this when it comes back. We'll be revisiting some of the best business advice that we've gotten from our guests in the last year. And then that'll set the table for the brand new season of Command Q, where we really focus down on that business side of things. So until next time, I'm John.
And I'm Mari.
And we're reminding you that quitters can win and winners can quit. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the guest's own and do not necessarily represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Command Q or Uncompany.